There are always places on the British coastline that are under threat from the eroding power of the sea. This is the story of 3 of those places where people have had to face the challenge of our shrinking coasts. On January the 26th, 1917, Hallsands, a fishing village on the South Devon coast, was destroyed by storms. The authorities blamed the tragedy on a natural disaster, but one man disagreed. An engineer, Richard Worth, believed that the real cause lay in people's ignorance of Hallsands' vulnerable coastline. Why did the village of Hallsands fall into the sea? 100 years ago, the village stood on a soft, rocky outcrop. In front lay a large shingle beach standing high above sea level, which acted as a natural sea defence. The shingle beach absorbed the energy of the waves, preventing the rocky foundation of the village from being eroded. In 1884, even at high tide, the beach protected the village. But by 1905, only 21 years later, the beach was disappearing. Richard Worth didn't have to look far to see where it had gone. Nearby, Plymouth Dockyard was being constructed, and the shingle to build its walls was being dredged from the beaches near Hallsands. The waves now began to carry away the shingle from Hallsands Beach to fill in the holes left by the dredging. As the shingle disappeared, the beach gradually began to fall below sea level. At high tide, the sea crashed against the rocks. The cliff that was supporting the village was no longer protected by the beach. The authorities assured the villagers that the sea would replace the shingle beach. Richard Worth was sceptical, and as he studied the geology of the area, his fears grew. The shingle that formed the beaches had arrived there thousands of years ago at a time of higher sea levels. But as sea levels fell, deep tidal channels with strong currents prevented any new shingle from being deposited on the beaches. On January the 26th, 1917, storms hit the village of Hallsands. Without the protective beach, the sea quickly eroded the soft rocks that formed the base of the cliff, supporting the village. The houses simply crumbled into the waves. The village of Hallsands was lost. The records for the past 100 years show how quickly the coast at Hallsands could be radically changed by the eroding waves. That same process goes on today. Now, other places face the challenge of our changing coast. At the seaside town of Minehead on the Somerset coast, new sea walls are being built to protect the town from the storm and tidal damage that has been happening there for centuries. The forces of nature are being challenged by the construction of truly massive sea defences. A rock armour of huge boulders, each weighing up to 7 tons, is being placed in front to lessen the erosive power of the waves. Curved concrete wall sections are designed to deflect the waves back into the sea. The defences may be spectacular, but they come at a cost. £12.5 million at the latest estimate.
Butlins, Butlins, Butlins by the sea. There's a holiday that's...
Helping to foot the bill are the owners of Summer West World, Butlins. Built in the 1950s, Butlins has continued to attract holidaymakers to Minehead. The money they spend has become important to the area's economy. Seen in this light, the bill for the sea defences seems to make sense.
Butlins by the sea.
Butlins lies directly behind the seafront. Without adequate defences, the resort could be destroyed by floods. By studying old maps of Minehead, we can see why it is under threat. In this one, from 1822, we see that the area that's now Butlins Resort was once a marsh. Though partly protected by a shingle beach, the whole area was prone to flooding by the sea. Storms and high tides naturally want to flood this area. £12.5 million says they won't. Just a little way along the Somerset coast at Porlock, there's a radically different approach to managing our coastline. Here, there are no massive man-made sea defences. Up until now, nature has been doing just fine. Like at Hallsands, shingle had acted as a natural sea wall, a barrier of shingle protecting the farmland behind Porlock Bay from storms and high tides. But recently, winter gales have overwhelmed the shingle ridge. The beach defence was broken and the land behind is flooding. The National Trust, which manages most of the beach and land behind, has been faced with a dilemma. Should they try and replace the shingle at enormous cost, or should they do nothing and let nature take its course? To make their decision, they've tried to understand the natural formation of the beach. 10,000 years ago, the shingle was dredged up by the seas and formed the beach. But now, once all the shingle has been deposited on the beach, all the waves can do is reshape it. Because the waves strike the beach at an angle, the remaining shingle has been pushed from one end of the beach to the other. The beach now sloped from its high point at the north end to its low point at the south end. Eventually, the high tides broke through the low part of the shingle beach. Faced with this evidence, the National Trust could see that any attempts to fill the gap would simply be washed away by future storms. It was decided to let the sea flood the farmland behind. This area would now become marshland, periodically flooding and draining through the creek. Although some farmland will be lost, the sudden damaging floods will no longer happen. A new balance is forming naturally between the land and the sea. Although the farmland behind has been abandoned, this new marshland will absorb the impact of future floods. This approach is called managed retreat. The destruction of Hallsands was a result of people not understanding coastal systems. The same natural processes can be seen today at Minehead and Porlock. But the way people have reacted has been different. Coastal management will always be the subject of fierce debate. Understanding these natural systems will be vital to that debate.